My name is Francine Dufour Jones. I'm an alcohol ink artist and an artist of many other mediums. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about myself. And then we're going to be talking about some different kinds of pens and markers and other wonderful things that we can use with alcohol inks. I am a founding contributor to the Alcohol Ink Art Society. I've been here since the beginning and kind of the beginning of the trend of alcohol inks. I love alcohol inks and the vivid, bright colors and the different ways we can use them and combine them with different materials. I love this organization because everyone is so willing to share. And by us sharing with each other, the alcohol inks has just grown like wildfire. And so it's really fun to have this opportunity to share with you. Today, I'm going to share different pens and markers. Because I like to use so many different mediums, one of the things I like to do a lot is I'll do a painting and I might do it in oils, and then I'll do the same painting or scene perhaps in pastels. Then I might do it digitally. I might do it in crayons, and then in alcohol ink. And I learned something from each painting and each medium I do. And one of the things I wonder about a lot is how can we incorporate what we've learned with other art forms and other mediums and play the mad scientist and see how they can connect with each other. For instance, you might use, let's say, Yupo paper was originally used for many other mediums. I first was introduced to Yupo paper using watercolor and then alcohol inks. I go, wow, this is fantastic. Or I might use an acrylic on top of alcohol inks, or acrylic markers, which a lot of us love, our Pashka markers. I'll show you that. And how to, by combining different markers and pens with alcohol inks, it gives us so many more possibilities. So let me share with you some ideas, and I'd love to hear your ideas too, because this is how we make Alcohol Ink Society and alcohol inks grow and nurturing each other. Okay?
Okay, I just want to talk about some of my very, very favorite markers and pens. I think one that I probably use the most is the Micron pen. Now, the Micron is archival ink, and once it's dry, it's hard to wipe off, which is really good if you're going to do your signature, or if you're painting with alcohol inks and you accidentally hit this once it's dried, you're not going to rub it off. Now, I use this a lot in, for instance, these birch trees, these little black lines here, and little detailed branches going off are all done with the Micron pen. The other thing that I use on this is my very favorite marker or pen is called the Pashka pen or marker. And these come in different sizes, and this is actually an acrylic base. Now you have to shake it so you hear that ball, and then you have to pump it to get the ink or the paint flowing like this. And you have to be careful, because sometimes when you always need to test it. Like here, I got a big blob. I could use that blob and paint with. So I always pump it on something other than my painting, and then I can see what kind of spots or thicknesses I'm going to get. Now, I use this sometimes. I've pulled out the trunks if it's on, say, Yupo or a paper that like graphics, Dural white. I can just pull it out with alcohol and a Q-tip. But sometimes it might get messed up, or it doesn't go all the way to white that you need it. So you can just paint over this with the Pashka pen, and it's permanent. Once this is dry, you can paint over it again or blend it with alcohol inks. Probably the most well-known markers are the alcohol ink markers. Now, there's many brands. I just happen to have Spectrum Noir. I got a good deal on a set, and they come in many different colors. In this painting, I don't think I've used this at all, but I'll show you a tree painting that I have. So these are good to have. And then one of my other favorite pens, and I used this before I found the Posca pen, but this is a very specific type of pen. It's a Speedball Signo, and it's got Japanese writing on it. Now, what I use this for is very thin details, for instance. So if I was going to put a highlight in this eye here, for example, I would just do a little highlight like that. And those little tiny details make all the difference. Show you on this one. This painting got to be a little dark. I could save this actually by going over it with a Posca pen and then repainting some inks, or I could try to pull some out. But I just want to show you the Uniball pen, how brilliant it is on the eyeball. So just that little tiny speck of light brings life to the ice. Now this painting is a good example. This was a painting on Yupo paper with alcohol inks, and I used some stencils, but these little white, looks like a spider web or something, was done with the Uniball Signo white pen, this pen right here. And you can see there's very tiny little dots all over. Sometimes I just get carried away with this, but it's really fun. And then I use this usually in the highlight of an animal or someone's eye, and it just brings a life to the person or animal. And it's also a good pen to sign your name. By the way, on signing your name on your alcohol inks, if you're going to sell these as prints, I recommend not signing your name right away, because if you do different sizes, your name might be in the wrong place. Or if it was let's say if I blew this up or shrank it down, it might not always be placed. So I sign the prints in person is what I do. Just a little tip there. I want to share with you one of my unusual markings and embellishments that I like to use. I've been also a silk painter for many, many years, and I use this a lot in silk painting. This is actually a piece of silk that I painted on with alcohol inks and a permanent resist. This is kind of the consistency of, let's say rubber cement. And we have a book coming out, the Alcohol Ink Art Society, I believe in the fall sometime soon, on Amazon, on alcohol inks. And how to do this particular technique is in that book. And so you'll see more, and you might like to experiment with it. And how this is done is this is filled with the resist, and then the outline is done. Now, usually I'll do this if I'm painting on silk or I'm using it as a resist. I'll put this on the surface first. If I'm using it as an embellishment, I'll put it on after the painting is done, and I'll show you an example of that. Now, this is an original alcohol ink painting. I think we did a paint along with this. And this is alcohol ink on Yupo, or it might be Narrow paper. I don't remember which. And can you see the gold on it? I just love putting it on. This is an embellishment. So this is done after it's painted. And the same thing as I filled this up and I just draw with this, not with the tape on it. And little dots. So this is really kind of fun to use. And I'll share with you another little mixed media with alcohol inks. This is on mineral paper or Terra Skin. It's a paper that's not really paper. It's not made out of paper. It's made out of rocks. And I like to use this a lot for alcohol inks and mixed media. So how this was done is alcohol inks is poured on the backgrounds. I might have taken a stencil that I made and just kind of left it on here for a while. Or I might have stamped some over here. And then after that was all dried, it was a very abstract thing. I have made my own stencil. I cut out this image in shape And so I put the stencil over this, and then I rolled with a roller acrylic ink on top of it. So it's a combination of acrylic inks and alcohol inks on a mixed media paper called mineral paper. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. So I hope I'm inspiring you to use your creative juices and inspiration and to be the wild scientist and experiment. Now this is a piece, it's mostly acrylics, but there's alcohol inks underneath it. And then this white here is probably the Posca pen. It also could have been my Uniball white pen, but I think it was the Posca pen. And then the really cool stuff, I love this, are these, this new product for me is an acrylic. And so all these squiggly lines here are squeezed out of the bottle, and it's very loose, and then dot, 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 and splattered some white acrylic, signed it with the Posca pen. And I haven't sealed it yet, but I may mount this probably on a wood block. But just some other ideas you can do with alcohol inks, acrylics, and different kinds of markers. So I hope you enjoyed that, and you can think of some interesting things that you might have that you might like to play with. And I'd love to hear back from you, hear your ideas, because that's how we all grow, by sharing our experiments. And I like to share what worked and what didn't work. So until next time, bye now.